a playlist original.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Back to the Blockbuster Presents Deep Dives with Owen and Gaius. I believe this is episode 9?
Episode 9. What's up, buddy?
Yeah. Yes, what's up? How's it going, man?
Oh, it's going good, man. It's going good. Off to a good start to the week. And
Nice.
it's my pick, finally.
That's
So
fine.
I'm ready to
He's
get
ready.
into it. It's been it feels like it's weird. Like this week or these last 2 weeks waiting for my pick, it's felt longer than normal because I think I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do like a couple weeks ago. And so it's like I've been waiting for this day to finally
You're
get
like,
into it, and you have some good opinions on it as well. So I know it's going to be a hit for you, but can't wait to get into it.
yeah, it's definitely a good one. It's a bit divisive. Like, some people really love it.
Yeah.
Other people, I will share my first experience seeing it in theaters with my friend who hated it. Yeah, it's that kind of movie. But the people that do love it really love it. And, the people that feel some kind of way about it really feel some kind of way about it.
Yeah.
But movies like this are always fun to get into because everything can't be universally loved. And like I'm gonna love to kind of get into some of the things that people don't love and see if, like, do they have a point, or are they missing the point of what the movie was trying to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'll be good, guys. Actually, I can actually say this won't be like the whole cheesy, like, oh, what did you do this weekend? Because we actually didn't see each other this weekend. So this is like this will be it's a genuine part of the like, sometimes it's not. It's like, hey, what'd you do over the weekend? Like, I saw you.
Yeah.
But not this time. We did not see each other this weekend. So did you get into anything? Did you watch anything? What was the weekend like?
Yes, this weekend I actually kind of took it a little bit more easy this weekend. I took a little self-care day Saturday, which was great. So I just kind of stayed in, and to all the
Nice.
listeners out there, I just kind of sat in and watched movies, which is what this whole thing is about, which is great. So I actually watched A Walk Amongst the Tombstones with
Liam Neeson.
Neeson. Yeah, I don't know. Carl recommended it to me, and so I was like, I think I'll take one of his recommendations and check it out. It was a little bit disappointing. I thought it was gonna be.
You're like, I will never listen to him again.
No, it's
Okay.
not that. It was just like I kind of expected a little bit more because it's about this sort of gritty underbelly of, like, the way that the synopsis was laid out was, it's like the underbelly of the New York crime world or something, but like it was basically just about two maniacs. Like, David Harbour actually does a really good job playing this crazy sort of serial killer dude. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It just kind of seemed, I mean, the plot was good. Like, these two guys, they uncovered some files that were from a DEA agent, and they thought that they could extort drug dealers by either capturing someone that they cared about, and then basically, like, they're not going to go to the cops because they're already involved in some seedy stuff. So it made sense, sort of that kind of thing. But Liam Neeson is like this, like, there was a whole, like, they used the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous to kind of like draw some things in and some conclusions at the end of his reasoning for things. So it was good. But, and also, like, there was a kid in the library that he met that wanted to be like a junior detective that just didn't really fit. But overall, it was entertaining. And then watched a couple after the John Wick, did some Born Supremacy and Identity
I would love to
remastering.
like redo those. I haven't watched those in so long, and I wonder, like, do they still hold up pretty well?
They hold up. The script is not as good as I remember it being. I remember Jason Bourne and Matt Damon's character being a little bit more like genuine, or like kind of like a little bit more hard, but his
Yeah.
dialogue with like Marie and some of the other characters just seems, it wasn't as good as I remember it to be. Like, just in terms of the dialogue, but the action's great. It's a great story. Brian Cox just kills it. So it's like,
I love Brian Cox.
yeah, so good. So
Brian Cox is so
definitely
good.
definitely some good ones. Yeah. Man.
Yeah. Have you seen The Bourne Legacy, the one with Jeremy Renner?
Honestly, I was about to click on that because it's on Netflix now, and I
Okay.
decided to go for the classic Matt Damon first before I do it because I haven't gotten a chance to check it out.
Yeah, I saw it when it came out in theaters. I remember thinking it was fine for what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Jeremy Renner, so like that part's cool. But I think that franchise is so intertwined with Matt Damon that it was hard to like watch someone new in that position.
Mhm.
But I remember not. I remember being entertained by it. I don't think it didn't have the same impact as the other ones.
Yeah.
But definitely,
Well,
I mean,
it's kind of
Jeffrey
like how
Pierce is
every James Bond new actor
yeah,
starts. It's like no matter what, the first one's gonna have some sort of controversy. And I
yeah,
think that because like I think after that, then they made that last one that was just called like Bourne or something
yeah.
like
Then when they brought back
Bourne,
Matt Damon, yeah, Jason
where
Bourne,
Matt
yeah,
Damon looks old as hell
yeah,
in that
yeah.
movie.
You're just like, oh,
You're like,
we
oh,
should,
he's still beating the shit out of people in like North
yeah,
Africa, I guess.
like we should just let this at ultimatum and
Yeah,
not,
but no, I,
and
I
not.
understand how it's like how you have to kind of reinvent the story with a different actor, and that can be tough.
Yeah, definitely. I watched a lot actually. I watched what we're gonna talk about tonight. I watched The Sandlot because I just told you that we did an episode for that film's 30th anniversary. After The Sandlot was over, the Jeepers Creepers was on TV, and I just left
Okay.
it on. I was like, it had just started, and I was like, I'll just watch it. I own it, but like, it's some certain movies hit differently when you catch them on TV. They're like, all right, I'll just
It's so
watch
true.
it.
Yeah.
And that movie holds up pretty well. It's not a perfect horror movie, but definitely original and has some pretty decent like set pieces and decent scares. I think the movie is better in the first half when you don't know what the thing is, when it just seems like it might be some creepy dude following him on the highway.
Okay.
Once you learn that it's like a monster, like you're like, all right, that's not as
Takes away a little bit.
yeah. Oh, the allure, like
Yeah.
like oh, like it's eat people to stay alive, and it, like eats different body parts, like because it needs to regrow and reach it. Like, yeah, I guess kind of works, but the first 30 minutes like is a solid like suspenseful, like 'cause you don't know what is really chasing them, and
Mhm.
for those first 30 minutes, and then
Isn't that
they
Justin
explain it.
Long too?
Yeah, Justin Long's in it. Yeah, yeah,
Love Justin Long. One of my favorites.
yeah. Yeah, he actually has a reputation. Like when you see him in a horror movie, you're like, this is gonna be good because he was in Jeepers Creepers. He's in Drag Me to Hell, which is also really good. He was in Barbarian, which came out last year. That was really good. So he's a reliable presence in horror movies. And then I went out for a little bit because my friend wanted to watch the Suns Clippers game like at a bar. So I did
Nice.
that. I did that for a little bit. Came back home and watched Succession because I'm too afraid to just let it linger until the next day. Like
Yeah.
too many people start. We actually had a big discussion of like how long does a trade publication have to wait to post spoilers about something that airs live, especially when like the East Coast gets it like first and then like
Yeah.
West Coast hasn't watched it yet. I don't think the night of is appropriate to
The day
put like
after.
put major spoiler in like a headline. But just in case, I was like, I don't want anything to be spoiled. I
Well, I
watched
mean,
it
also
live.
it's such a like pop culture phenomenon right now that no matter what,
Yeah,
if people know that you're watching it, they'll text you about like as soon as
yeah,
they see it, they'll probably reach out. It's like water cooler talk now.
yeah, yeah. So it's like, wait, I mean, I can't let it linger. If I let it linger, then someone's going to spoil it for me, and I'm just going to be pissed off, and I don't want that to happen. Oh, and I saw
Yeah.
Renfield on Thursday.
Oh, nice. How was
Uh,
that?
remember when we saw that trailer during, I think it was John Wick or one of
Yeah,
the movies we
yeah.
saw, or Cocaine Bear, and you were like, I can't tell if this looks good or not. Like it was just something
I
about
think
it.
it was John Wick.
So it's not bad, but it definitely could have been better. Like, when it leans into like being camp, it's really good.
Yeah.
And Nicolas Cage steals every scene that he's in. Nicholas Holt is pretty funny. Aquafina is really funny, but her story in the movie isn't that great.
Mhm.
It has this really cheesy like subplot where she's a cop and like her dad was a cop and she wants to be like a really good cop to like live up to her father, and it's like really cheesy.
Yeah.
And the movie has like a forced message about like toxic relationships and codependency, which could have been funny if they played it like, because like Renfield and Dracula are very codependent, and that could have been funny to kind of play off of. But they take it it's like two movies fighting with each other. Like one's trying to be serious, and the other one is Nicolas Cage, and that's fine, doing what he does
I don't
best.
know. Looks like one of those ones where the idea for it was great, and then they just
Yeah.
kind of got carried away. Like
Yeah.
they took. I mean, even in was the trailer Red Band that we saw, but even
The
if
first
it
one,
wasn't,
yeah.
it's like, I mean, just a little bit over the top for the blood and gore. Like I saw Donnie's review for it actually,
No,
and
really?
he was just like, yeah, I think he posted something on Instagram about his review, gave it like 3.5 out of 5 or something like that. He's like, hey, like this is exactly what you expect. It's Nicolas Cage, bloody and gory, and like definitely a good enjoying whatever it was, hour and a half, hour and 45 or something.
It's only like a little over 90 minutes, so it's pretty short.
Finally,
so at least that
2.5 hours long.
Yeah, at least there's that. I will give them all the credit for like keeping it short and sweet. Oddly enough, so we went to a 10 o'clock showing. I went with my brother and his friend Nick. I was in the middle, and both these motherfuckers fell asleep, and I was like,
No.
I know it was like a late showing, 10 o'clock, but it's also a
That's
short movie,
that's
and there's a
also
lot.
never a good thing.
Yeah, it's a lot going on too. So like at
Yeah.
one point, and it wasn't like they fell asleep during like a quiet part because they start to snore, and I was like, guys, you can't like,
Dude, you guys got that's
like,
unacceptable.
wake up, wake up. I was like, I don't want to be the one that like that everyone's
Well,
looking
I
at
mean,
us like.
and then it got absolutely crucified at the box office by Mario.
Yeah, it only made like $8 million this weekend, and
Ugh, that's brutal.
Mario. It was funny. Mario made 87 million initially. They thought, and that still would have been like the best second weekend for an animated movie ever, just ahead of Frozen 2 that made like 85 million its second weekend. But then those estimates were way off because it actually made like $92.3 million over the weekend.
That's insane.
It's already made $353 million here. It's the highest grossing movie of the year so far. Probably going to be the first $1 billion earner of the year.
Get ready for some sequels.
Yeah, I was
ready.
telling Jackson we were recording. I was like, when are they going to announce the 2 sequels and a spinoff? Because I feel like that's
It's
coming.
gonna happen. Yeah, there's gonna be a Jack Black Bowser show probably on Disney
Yeah.
Plus or something like that.
And then I'm surprised. It's probably percolating over there, but if they made a Super Smash Brothers movie, I could see that making a ton of money because
Dude,
they have
I would-
all those characters and like
I'd be lining up for that.
Yeah, I think that could work. But yeah, like they're laughing all the way to the bank. And thankfully, everyone who keeps saying that movies aren't back, I think a movie like this that's made for families, like families are actually going. I think this kind of shows that movies are
They're back.
now. Like everything's not going to do
Been
well.
back. They've been
they've
back.
been back
This,
for a
this
while.
conversation, yeah, this conversation is it's just for I think it's a journalist easy write up for like post COVID. Like, hey, what can we write about? Oh, this movie made a lot of money. All right, are
Yeah.
movies back? Are people going to see them? Yes, I think it
Well,
has been proven.
I actually emailed my boss and I was like, can I stop saying like this is like one of the biggest openings in like this post-pandemic era or this post-COVID era? Like, I feel like I shouldn't have to mention that anymore.
No,
Like, I'm not saying that COVID's gone, but like it's just everything feels over. Everything's open at 100% capacity. They're like everything is back to normal as far as like movie going and all that.
Yeah.
So to still mention that, like, oh yeah, like these numbers were good for like the post-pandemic era, like it just feels weird to say it. So
yeah, it's a little bit kind of hits a little bit close to home, and you're just like, let's not remind ourselves of that anymore. Let's just
that
move
was
on.
That was a scary time.
Yeah.
Thought movies are going to be obsolete, and yeah, like there's room for the theatrical experience. There's room for the streaming experience. Like I think that's what they're learning now is that some movies work at home, some movies work on the big screen. There's room for both.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
So it's always good to see. But yeah, can finally talk about what you
speaking of
picked.
which, I saw this movie in theaters with my dad when it came out, and because he is a huge fan of what this is technically a prequel for. So everybody, I chose Prometheus, the 2012 sci-fi horror movie that is directed by Ridley Scott. It has all of our favorites with Michael Fassbender, Noomi Rapace. I can't. Rapace. Charlize Theron. We got Idris Elba, Logan Marshall Green, Sean Harris,
Guy Pearce for
Pearce.
big measure.
Yeah, for in serious prosthetics.
Yeah.
He actually has. I mean, you see his when they do Alien Covenant. I think you see him just like regular, but Patrick Wilson makes an appearance in a dream scene.
just cause, you know.
I wonder if he just got paid like $50,000 or something.
He's like, I want to work with Ridley Scott. I'll do whatever.
Yeah. Benedict Wong's in it too. Yeah, so like
that I didn't remember, dude. I totally forgot, and I was like, and like the whole time I was rewatching it, I was like, that looks like Benedict Wong, and I was like, Benedict Wong, and I like looked it up. I was like, oh yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, so this movie, I mean, just to kind of go with the synopsis, it's the discovery of a clue to mankind's origins on Earth leads a team of explorers to the darkest parts of the universe. 2 brilliant young scientists lead the expedition. Shaw, played by Noomi Rapace, hopes that they will meet a race of benevolent, godlike beings who will in some way verify her religious beliefs, while Holloway, Logan Marshall Green, is out to debunk any spiritual notions. However, neither the scientists nor their shipmates are prepared for the unimaginable terrors that await them. And yeah, I chose this movie because it's one of my favorite sort of in this sci-fi cerebral sort of kind of genre where it takes a kind of common premise of exploration into finding aliens, finding this one kind of takes a little bit of a different direction where it's like we're gonna go to try and find the people that possibly created us, which is I think a really cool idea. But also just like finding another race that is out there and then going to a Earth-like planet, distance into space, and yeah, obviously they find what they're looking for, but not. I mean,
they discover something.
It always ends up where like
they
get murdered. So.
Yeah, these characters in these movies always have like some of them at least have the best intentions, right? They wanted like discover like where we came from.
Yeah,
this called like meaning a life. And especially someone like Elizabeth Shaw, where like she is really invested in a really like wholly like authentic, very like real place where she really wants to discover these things. And of course, with movies like this, they end up finding something else. that they should have stumbled upon.
I love like just from what you were saying too, like the character that Sean Harris plays, Fifield. Like, I'm a fucking geologist. I like rocks. You guys don't care at all about rocks. I'm going to the ship. Like, I don't need this pile of dead bodies. I don't need to be here for that. So, like, there's definitely some characters that kind of play to the audiences like, we got to get out of here. Like, what are we doing here? There's no reason for that. But I do like this very good creative story that just kind of talks about these scientists that are looking for kind of two separate things, like the discovery of an alien nation or an alien race, but also like whether or not like they're kind of searching for the overall biggest question of all mankind, like why were we created, what is the purpose of our existence, and sort of what would be like if we encountered the people that made us, and what was their reasoning for that. And so I think that it was just a great, and then also like I do like how it is technically a prequel to the Alien movies, but they only get to that in the last like 9 seconds of the movie, which I do enjoy because I don't know if they have.
Well, that's like, I mean, we could talk about it a little bit down the line too. They would go back and forth when this was coming out, like how tied is it to Alien and all that. But what I will say now, for what you just said, I love that. Yeah, there are tangible connections to it, but it also stands on its own. I think you don't really need 100%. To have seen Alien or any of the other movies to like enjoy this. Like, it really functions on its own. Like you said, there isn't really much of a connection really until those last few moments or whatever, where you're like, oh, okay, this is the beginning stages of what the xenomorphs basically that we meet in the 1979 movie. But yeah, I like that it can stand by itself though.
Yeah, but I like it's like the creation of the xenomorph is through like, I guess, very quick iterations of generations of different alien like it goes from it had to have been born kind of through a human, and then that kind of it's born out of the engineer, and so like there's all these different types of ways that it became created after all the different things. Like there were some things that I actually didn't notice and when I first saw the movie that we can kind of get into as we kind of go through the story. But yeah, I just want to hear kind of like how you first discovered it and what I mean, as soon as I said pick this movie, you're like, oh, I
love it. I love this movie. And like there's two different camps, right? So Jackson actually likes this movie and Alien Covenant, but usually what I've noticed is that the people that don't really like Prometheus is because they complain that it's slow, it's too cerebral, and honestly a lot doesn't really happen until like a little after an hour, like where there's like action. But the journey is what's more exciting about this movie than like all these like kind of action set pieces. I didn't need that.
Definitely.
because
it's not an action movie,
right? Because the conversations between the characters is what's interesting. Like their dynamics is what's interesting. It's also a beautiful looking movie. It's
gorgeous.
It's a gorgeous fucking movie. So like you can get lost in that. But I saw it on opening night with this girl I used to work with, and I love Alien and Aliens, the first and second movie. Not so much Alien 3 and not so much Alien Resurrection. The first two are great. This was an exciting movie because, this was Ridley Scott returning to this world that he kind of created in the 1979 movie. And yeah, we were getting a lot of information about like, okay, is it a proper prequel? Like, oh, it has the same DNA, but it's different, or it's in the same universe, but we want to kind of keep it different. I think by the time you get to Alien Covenant, they're like, oh yeah, it's firmly in,
it is.
Is in that franchise. But that's what we were excited about. Everyone wanted to see Prometheus. Like, yeah, this is Ridley Scott going back to doing like sci-fi horror, a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh,
What was his movie right before this that he hadn't? Do you know what he did before this?
I wonder if it was something that bombed too. Something that didn't do that well. I'll try to find it in a little bit. It was he's done so many different types of movies. Like you like talk about Alien and Gladiator, like all these things. All these movies are all very different. And like in his most recent career, like The Last Duel and like House of Gucci, this guy has directed all types of movies. Yeah. But Alien is known for being like it's probably one of the best sci-fi horror films ever made. It's made with such genuine tension and atmosphere, and it's genuinely scary. Like they're for something that came out in 1979, like there's still scenes today where I see it like that freak me out, and like it's basically almost like a slasher movie in space, but like but it's so well done. It's very made,
suspenseful,
right? And so that's what was exciting about it. It was like, all right, well, we're gonna get him back into this. And I remember that opening night, there was a packed theater. We saw it pretty late. It was like 11 o'clock at night. And I showed my friend Alien and Aliens before. I was like, don't worry about the other two. They're not good. She liked Alien and she liked Aliens, but I remember when the movie was over, I was like, this is so good. And I could just tell like on her face, she was like, that was just really boring. She was like, nothing really happened until, like I said, like it took like a while for stuff to happen. And then she also felt like there were a lot of unanswered questions that then actually looked this up too. A lot of people feel this way, that the movie doesn't properly explain itself. And I will throw those points at you. You bring them up and see if you agree or not.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I could tell the theater was divided too. Like even you could just tell that it was like some people felt that she felt that they thought it was boring, and other people felt like me. I knew in that second weekend drop that a lot of people felt like her, that like they thought it was boring. Because it made like $50-something million this opening weekend, and then like fell like
it dropped.
If not for like its worldwide gross, it wouldn't have been considered like a hit, I don't think. But right away, I love the cinematography. I love like the kind of questions it kind of throws at you. There's so many different themes that are going on in it. This rewatch made me appreciate certain characters a bit more. I remember when I first saw it, Charlize Theron's character was the only one I was like, she's just cold and that's it. I can't pick up what she's putting down. And it was weird rewatching it this time. I was like, oh, I could see where this is coming from. Like watching like I guess really paying attention to her interactions with certain people. This is why she is the way that she is. And like I think when I first saw it, it felt more one note. But this time I was like, all right, I get the character choices she was making, and like how she actually decided to play it. So like that was interesting on rewatch. Like that character actually resonated a bit more watching it yesterday for me.
Yeah, well, I felt like I didn't really understand her. Like yes, I realized that Wayland is her father, but like she looks like she's in her late 20s, early 30s, and he's fucking ancient. So like I don't understand. That's the one thing that I kind of didn't understand. I'm sorry, I'm getting absolutely
attacked by a cat.
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I don't think he likes Prometheus.
Oh, he's like, this movie's trash. Oh man.
Oh my god. I'm so sorry about that.
That was
attacked.
That was hilarious.
Everyone out there, sorry, my cat was attacking me. But no, I did like her character, because one of the things that I didn't really think about was like, yes, the expedition was sponsored by Wayland, and so like I love the scene when she kind of brings Holloway and Shaw into her ship, like because they had just basically been briefed by the hologram where it's like, as far as you guys are concerned, they're in charge. So everyone's kind of thinking that these guys are the leaders of the expedition. Then they go into her sort of like life support sub, like where she can basically live if she wanted to, which is already a little bit intimidating, kind of thinking like she can leave whenever she wants. She has the ability to kind of go anywhere. And she was like, listen, we paid $1 trillion to come out here. I'm in charge. I kind of liked that scene.
I do love
her showing authority like that.
I forgot
I really
what the exact line is when they realize that like their agendas are different, right? And she basically tells him like, well, if you were funding this and like whatever, like, we'd be sitting here talking about like your agenda is basically, you're not. So like now you're listening to me. I thought like it's weird. Like initially when I first saw the movie, like her character was the one I was like, oh, I mean, she's just a bitch, I guess. Like, oh, it's a little bit more
Yeah.
layered. It's a little bit more layered than that. I think when you rewatch it, I especially felt like she felt the way she did, like especially with Waylon, because there's David, there's Michael Fassbender, who's not even a human,
Yeah.
and like there's more
Yeah.
invested in him than
Yep.
living, breathing, human
Closest thing to a son I
closest
never
like,
have.
had. Yeah. So I actually read into her resentment a lot and her anger a lot more because like, oh, it's all coming from that, and most of it at least. So it's weird because I didn't pick up on that when I first saw it. Like I don't know if I was not paying attention to their stuff, but like, yeah, that I totally get it now. Like why she is the way she is.
Yeah,
Definitely reads a lot
that's
better.
that's one of the only lines I didn't like in the movie though, is when she says father, because it
Yeah.
just seems so cliche. Like it's just like one of those typical like, oh, this guy's my dad, but she actually has to say father in
Yeah.
that sort of grandiose term and terminology and way. I was like, all right, come on. But like in terms of how old she was, like I said, do you think that Wayland was trying to like have children way past his prime, or was it like an advancement of technology? Because that's one of the kind of things that I didn't really get, is like this dude's on his deathbed.
Yeah.
And I mean, and his daughter's like, I mean, come on, Charlize Theron, like there's
Yeah.
no way that they're like, what's the age gap there in terms of like, I don't think that needs to be explained, but that was just one of those things I was like, really? Come on.
Yeah. I agree with you.
But I think Michael Fassbender is easily the best character
in the movie.
in the movie.
Yeah. And it's so funny because he's not human, but you learn very early on, like what I love about characters like that. Like I love how they have him watching that movie and he's still learning. He's just picking up on things, and like it's interesting because one of the like people feel they don't quite understand, but I got it. His character motivations, like I know this happens later in the movie, but we're talking about him right now. His character motivation for like putting the stuff in Holloway's drink.
Yeah.
I always got the impression that he was almost like he was experimenting, almost like he wanted to see what would happen to him if he ingested it or whatever. A lot of people don't think that's fully, like, his motivations for doing it are really fully explained. I mean, and that character being addicted to him is not a good explanation because he is addicted to him pretty early on. But I always got the impression that like he was still learning stuff, so he wanted to see like what that would do to the human body, and then I mean, by consequence, like what would it do if that got passed on to like someone else in the case of like impregnating her? Like I think he wanted to know what would transpire there. I don't think it's necessarily evil, but I think he was trying to like just see what happens.
Well, I think it goes. I think it's the beginning of his experimentation into basically his idea of what he can create, and like this gets explored way more in Covenant, because it's like him trying to basically create like life. And so like, I mean, you can see his hesitation, like when he asks Holloway, he says, how far would you go to, like, what would you give up in order to like find what you're looking for? And he says, I'd give my life. I'd do it. I mean, anything. And that's the point where David's like, all right, like like that's confirmation enough where he's like, well, he's willing to try anything to figure out some answers. So David's trying to figure out some answers too.
Right.
But I really think that his motivation really is like, he was created and he knows, he has enough common sense to know, like, he obviously can't procreate, but what else can he do? And I think that this is sort of his first inclination to be like, all right, what else can I learn? What else can I create?
Right.
What else can I kind of see, and how far could this go? Because he's like, oh, this is organic material. He's not organic material. What can he do with that? But I mean, my favorite line that he has is when they're suiting up to go to their first expedition, and Holloway asks him, hey, why are you wearing a suit? Like, you don't need to breathe.
Yeah.
He said that it's like, listen, your people created me to be more like you, and if I didn't do this, it would defeat the purpose. And that line is so interesting because it's such a reality of how we as humans, like, I mean, most of the scientific stuff that that we are consistently doing now is based off of science fiction movies. And like, when we create AI, we're going to make them look like us. It's just as simple as that. And so to have something that is a perfect version of technically a human, but is not, because it's just a computer basically, like, yeah, you feel uncomfortable when it doesn't look like you. And so like, a whole cerebral notion of like having this sort of animatronic like computer that is walking next to you, but if he was just like a robot like C3PO, you'd feel a little bit weird about it. So,
Yeah.
to have him act like a human and look like a human
Yeah.
is important. And so I thought that was a really interesting way to
That.
like have that sort of character explained.
Yeah. Where do you think Holloway's hostility towards him like kind of stems from? Because it's right from the
Apparent
jump.
right away.
Right from the jump, like that almost comes off like threatened by him a bit, like his presence, like because he's not human and all that. It doesn't really like dive into it too much coming from. I was wondering if you thought like what you thought might have been the case for him, like just automatically just dismissing him as like, you're not one of us kind of thing.
Yeah,
That's how some people. That is how people act too when they are around people who aren't like them. I mean, that is a very much a realistic portrayal of certain people. But like, I was wondering what you kind of thought.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question because I was thinking about that too. I was like, wait, why right off the bat is he just automatically combative with David? I think kind of looking back on it now, I mean, David didn't have to go into the sleep pods. He doesn't have the normal restrictions that humans do. And so to have all of it, and then obviously like this knowledge, like they rely on him almost to a fault, which like they needed him in order to do all of these things. Like if they found the engineers that they were looking for, Holloway's first question, are you sure you can communicate with them? Because he's been studying language for the last 2 years to see if he can do it. Like they need him so much that I think Holloway is a little bit, I don't know about jealous, but just kind of a little bit disconcerted with the fact that in order to fulfill his like notion and his idea of what this journey is going to be, they need like perfection and they need like computers and this whatever they want to. I mean, what would you call his character? So I don't have to call him an animatronic robot anymore.
Yeah, I would.
It's not cyborg. Like
he's not. Is he a? He's not. Is he a droid? No. Is he a humanoid?
Yeah, humanoid. Whatever. He's like a AI. Whatever is. They need that. So
yeah,
I think like that might be where it's coming from. That's just an educated guess, honestly. Yeah. But like, yeah, it is very apparent, and you can see that he's just kind of like, oh, you're perfect. I get it. Like we're not. And so I think that kind of comes off pretty strong. And it's funny because David doesn't have emotion, but you can tell that he takes it personally.
There are certain jabs that when he hears them, it's in his face. There he's like, that kind of hurt. Like not like really like, but yeah, you can tell he's like, because he does give some snark back a little bit sometimes.
He does.
And like that scene where like after, I mean, we'll talk about that scene later, but after he has that emergency C-section to get that thing out. And he's like, he says something to her along the lines like, "Oh, you had that in you," and he's like, "Oh, it's a poor choice of words." He's like making fun of the fact that like I thought that was like so like great that like he's learning so much. Yeah, humor. Like he's actually developing that, and they did it in a really realistic way that he would eventually pick up on all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was a unique way to do it. I wanted to ask you because one of the first questions on Cinema Blend. It's about the opening of the movie, which I was saying I have this on Blu-ray, and immediately the visuals from that opening are amazing.
Where was this film? Like, but this had to have been in like Scandinavia or something. Like this is just.
I think
it is just absolutely stunning right off the bat.
Film was shot using 3D cameras throughout, almost entirely on practical sets and on location in England, Iceland, Scotland, Jordan, and Spain.
Oh wow! Okay,
a lot of places.
I can see. Yeah, I was gonna say I could definitely see Iceland. I don't know if I mean, I wonder how much CGI they used for some of those, like big wide, like entrance shots into, like so. I mean, even just like that valley that they land into in the beginning. But yeah, the opening scene's very interesting. It's like.
It's just beautifully shot too. I mean, before you're trying to get like what's going on, you're like, this is just fucking pretty.
It's like, really pretty, and then you see this sort of like shadow kind of roll through, and this huge ship just kind of landing. I wanted to hear what your reaction is about this opening scene because like I still am not exactly sure what it is trying to tell us. Like it's like. Is this, first of all, is this on Earth? I don't know if it is.
I'm glad you brought that up. All right, so the part of what Cinema Blend, one of the first things they bring up, like they don't fully, they think the movie doesn't fully explain. They said the opening movie is stunning in its visuals, but it's hard to tell why exactly the engineer has opted to drink the black glue where he is, or really what's going on in general. And it's never explained in the rest of the movie, just simply left for viewer interpretation. Their theory, and I agree with this, they said what we are seeing in the beginning is the creation of Earth. The giant ship, which is different from the ring shape one we see later in the film, weirdly, has landed on Earth to drop off the engineers so that he can terraform the planet and make it sustainable for life. We think he drinks the black goo to break down his own structure and spread life on Earth through his own DNA, but that doesn't really explain his surprise while he's disintegrating. But they think that is what they think that, and I kind of got that vibe a little bit that we are maybe seeing
you see the CGI of his, like, the black DNA kind of turning into what we, I guess, would expect to be human DNA.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't really actually pick up on that the creation of humans was done through the destruction of an engineer, I guess.
Yeah.
And I thought that organic material was, as they explain later, used as a weapon rather than their creating purposes. So, like,
right,
at that point it would seem that, like, the creation of humans was an accident.
Yeah, it does. And that's funny because this leads into what does the black goo do exactly, and why does it affect different people differently? And they were saying that it seems to, like, the way it's used, like, they're almost like it is kind of like they're weaponizing it a bit.
Yeah.
But it says whenever different characters are exposed to it, it seems to have different reactions, be it with the aforementioned Holloway or Feifel, who gets a face full of it in that one scene.
Yeah.
And their theory is the black goo is the earliest evolutionary stage we come to know as the xenomorph, which is like the alien from, the original Alien movies. They theorize that even the first living things on Earth began as single-cell organisms and evolved and adapted with the environment to become more complex. This is presumably what happens with the black goo. As for why it has a different effect on different people, they think that is a mystery, and, like, probably not the movie really explaining itself. Yeah. But I could see that being, like, the beginning stages of, like, what eventually becomes, like, the xenomorph that we meet in that first film in 1979.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just this material that, like that description kind of said, it's like, it's this material that automatically sort of speeds up this, like, sort of this process that will let them adapt to their surroundings, but in a very aggressive and predatorial way. Where it's automatically does something where it's like they're going to become sort of like the apex predator in that area. And so, like, that's kind of a cool way to think about it. But I mean, I always thought a bit about it as, like, because I mean, when you see, I hate the fact that I'm referencing Covenant so much, but it's like,
I mean,
when you
it's a part of it.
When you see, like, when you see David, like, using those weapons on the engineers when they finally go to, like, that planet or whatever it is, like, I thought that it's basically just their form of, like, an organic bomb that can just, like, destroy and that continuously, like, destroy life. But it also might have that effect on the engineers because they created it, and on Earth it might have sort of the opposite effect, where it is sort of creating this sort of lifestyle. And so, but I thought that first scene, my original thought process was that he was there to either test it and they weren't sure what it was going to do. And so that's why, like, I thought that they might have dropped him off, like, was this on that first planet? And that's kind of why they weren't really sure, or the planet that they go to visit. And, like, they weren't really sure what the effect was going to be. And so that's why, like, they dropped him off and then they're like, we're out of here. We don't know if he's going to blow up. Or and so I thought that was, like, I kind of also took it as this might just be a very intricate introduction, because then it just goes straight into, like, sort of like this CGI of Prometheus and like that kind of thing. It's the title card. So I didn't know if that was just Ridley Scott's way of saying welcome to this alien world, but it's a very interesting way to say it to start the movie off, because it's like this very creepy, you can tell, like, just pure, gosh, what do they call it? The stuff that they put on their face. It's just like,
oh shoot, I know why I'm blanking right now.
Yeah, I'm just
I know what you're talking about.
Whatever, just like total makeup and gosh, I can't believe we're terrible because we can't remember this. But it's just like pure, like, a big suit and all that kind of stuff. And, like, I mean, the dude's insanely ripped. Like, he's got like a 13 pack or something, but but very interesting looking. And I thought that was, like, especially their eyes was very cool. But then it goes straight to the Isle of Man in Scotland or something like that, where they find this
Yeah.
cave. And it's funny to think, because I thought about this when I rewatched it. Like, I think the year that they were doing it was like 2058 or 2048 or something like that. And like when I first saw it in 2012, I was like, oh my God, like that's so far away. And now I'm thinking,
Yeah, it's not
15, 20 years? Like,
not that far away.
That's not that far away anymore, which is so wild to think. But I mean, seeing these paintings and sort of like this sort of same image that they've seen throughout many ancient civilizations of these different star patterns, which they take to mean the engineers are calling to them and they want them to come, they want us to go visit them.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting to see. I don't know. I mean, you have to find a connection somehow. You have to find a reason for them to go. And I thought it was very well done to have many, many different civilizations through many different time periods. And like, they're like, oh, this is the oldest one. This is the best one. But they don't really explain how they found that. like,
they don't.
like, oh, this is one star pattern. It's like, oh, we found the exact one. The only one that matches in the next 800 million light years is this one. We're like, all right, okay. You got to find a way to get there somehow. But yeah, it's just, I was wondering I had a question for you. It's like, with all of these movies, there's many of them now where it's like this sort of travel to another human-like planet. I mean, you see it on something like Passengers, you see it on a lot of different movies where it's just like this giant space vessel. Like, what do you think about that sort of storyline? Because I mean, typically you see like this massive, whatever, probably $1 trillion thing, and there's like 11 people on the ship. What do you think about? Do you think that that's just like character, like kind of minimalization, trying to make sure that we don't have too many characters? But like, how do you think that they interpreted this? And do you like that storyline of like having this deep space expedition? Like, do you think that they did it well? Are you kind of tired of that? Like, what do you think?
I think this movie does it pretty well. Like you said, there are a lot of movies that do it, that kind of go down this trajectory. I'm fine with like, I mean, I do get what you're saying, where it's like this very elaborate expedition and there's only like a certain amount of people on it.
Yeah.
and like, but I mean, I get it from like don't want your ensemble to get too bloated, so I get it. Like, you need to kind of focus on like a few people. But I think this movie does a good job of like, one, making that exploration interesting, and then also the characters that we do have that are going on it, giving most of them the proper intentions for wanting to be there and wanting to do it.
Elizabeth Shaw, seems like no matter what, when you sign up for this, it's a death sentence. There's no way you're going home. Like that's what they never really explain. It's like, oh yeah, you mean automatically you're in cryo for 2.5 years. So I guess that's something. But like, even like they're saying Idris Elba, like, don't take this home with us. It's like, dude, they got 3 years to get home. Like,
yeah,
how realistic is this actual mission that they're going to return to Earth, and why would they?
And it's very true too. And like, I wonder if there's like a little bit of like naivete there, like, because like with Shaw, like, seems like she doesn't believe they're gonna find anything that's like almost threatening, really. Like, seems like her reasons for wanting to do it and wanting to be there are, she really wants to learn and like wants to know where we came from. Like, maybe we'll find out where we came from. So like, I understand, like, yeah, it does maybe sound like a death sentence, like you're going to this like uncharted territory that you don't know anything about. But with someone like her, it just seems like she's doesn't even think about like what other life form that they might find that might be a threat. I don't even know if that even like really crosses her mind, really, because she's so into her own like singular mission. And the same thing with Holloway. Like, they're all in it for like different reasons. I mean,
I guess they do explain it a little bit, like, because some of the other guys, they're like, hey, I'm here to get paid. So maybe there are, maybe in this sort of Prometheus universe, that there are deep space explorations where you can, hey, I'm signing up for a 4-year gig, gonna get paid bunch of money, and then I'm going to come home. Like, that might be the case. They didn't really explain it, but that might be something that we're dealing with here.
Like, and when those two guys are down there, when they first encounter the one thing that comes out of the water or the goop or whatever, and their reaction to it isn't, I'm looking at it from like me watching the movie. There's no way I would go over there like, oh, what is that?
Absolutely not. Oh, it's beautiful. I'd be like, let's get the fuck out of here.
But that's how they're seeing it, right? So I don't even know if they even see what they're seeing as like a threat. And they're just like, oh, like, what is it? Like, they are just so interested in exploring it and figuring out what it is. So I guess maybe like, it's not just her. It's just the way they react to that at first is like, they don't feel like they're even when it fucking opens up more, they're still like, oh, like they kind of back up a little bit.
Yeah, I would be out of there in a heartbeat. But hey, I'm glad you brought that up because that scene I didn't realize. Remember when they zoom in on one of those sort of pylons?
Yeah.
And you see these, like, I don't know if it's maggots or little worms that are kind of crawling around and they go into the black organic material. I think that is what turned into
oh shit.
That is what turned into it. I didn't think about it until the first one, but I was like, did they bring those there? Like somehow, like, did they bring some sort of like earthly worm through their like boots? Or I honestly have no idea. But when as soon as that thing touched the black stuff, I was like, oh, that's what turned into the snake thing.
That's gonna make me pop. That's gonna make me like pop it back in. Like, wait, I totally missed that.
I saw that, I was like, okay, yep, that's right. That's what it is.
By the way, talk about a scene where everything that could go wrong goes wrong. Like, I mean, as soon as it wraps around his arm, and then he's like, cut it off. He's like, it's breaking my arm, and then when it breaks his arm,
oh, dude, the arm.
And then I remember when I first saw it in theaters, I was like, they're gonna cut that shit open, and that whatever's inside of it is gonna be like, it's gonna be acid. It's gonna be acid. And then you got a dude's face, and I was like, oh yeah, it's everything. Yep. And then of course, in every kind of alien body horror movie, these things always enter through the mouth.
Through the mouth. They always go. He's like, no matter what, it always finds its way into the suit, and I wonder why. Like, is that just like is there stuff that does that on Earth where we think that a predator is automatically going to try and attack, like go into our suit and like go inside us, like that? It seems like it's a very alien sort of thing that most directors will take. It's like, oh, it needs to get inside us. And that's its goal.
Take over us.
Is there any predator on Earth that is trying to lay eggs in us? Like,
I don't know, like any kind of like parasite that does that. Yeah, that's.
I mean, most like a snake will swallow us from the outside. So like, it's not gonna try and break open our clothes or something. So like, I wonder why that's like a automatic response is inside the suit and go straight down the mouth.
Yeah, you know what? I think there's just like an inherent fear though of like.
Oh, it is. It's
something
terrifying.
like something entering your body like that, and then you having complete and like no control over it. Yeah. So like once it's inside you, I mean, that's why I think a lot of those scenes, and like they do a good job in this movie. That scene works really well. That's
the first action we see the entire movie.
I believe that's an hour. I paused it at one point because I wanted to see, because that was always a big complaint. Like, it takes forever for something to happen. It's like an hour and 8 minutes into the movie when it happens, and you know what? I didn't mind it. It's a slow burn, but I don't care. It's
a slow burn.
Right, but yeah, I want to know, because like that is always a complaint. Like, it's really boring until this stuff happens, and I was like, oh, it's an hour, a little over an hour, 8 minutes. But you know, I think all the stuff is interesting before then, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, like the idea of like something infecting us, I think that's probably the best visual representation of how to like show that. And you know, it really. I mean, entering through your mouth. I mean, that has to be.
It is inherently terrifying.
Invasive, and like it's the idea of like something just take like when Holloway is infected and it starts taking over him, and his whole skin and
when he looks in the mirror and he sees something in his pupil. As soon as that happens, well, the thing I don't get is why the hell would he not go straight to the med bay or tell someone and say like, listen, I saw something. I'm on an alien planet, and like I don't feel right.
Yeah,
like why is he trying to hide this? Is it for the sake of Shaw? Is it for the sake of the crew? Is it for some, like, I honestly have no idea what it would be for, but if I got sick in space, then there's no way I'm not telling someone.
Yeah. Speaking of the stuff that's on that we see when they're like exploring one of the things that Cinema Blend brought up too is they're like, what are those ghost-like apparition memory shadow creatures that show them what happened in the past? And then they say, so much of what we discover about these alien caves comes from these kind of pixelated shadows that reveal the past, from the hordes of alien creatures running away from something terrifying to the engineers on the bridge of the ship that David witnesses targeting their ship toward Earth. A lot of what Shaw later assumes about these aliens, including that the engineers created a weapon that killed their own people, comes from these shadow images. But what on earth are they, and why can we see them? Want their theory, or do you want yours first?
Well, I mean, I think it's just like a hologram, like recreation of like, like they might have been. It's like their version of a Ring camera, I guess.
Yeah,
where it's like it's their last video of what happened, sort of in the like David just hit playback, I guess.
Yeah,
and it was kind of like we got to see the last thing that kind of went on before everything went dark.
Yeah, I honestly don't think there is a deeper explanation for
I don't
this
think so.
either. I think it's just a cool way to visually show like what happened before they were there. I think it's just a cool way for them to like really explain it. It's like a cool sci-fi way to do it. I think it's an interesting way to do it. I like how they did it, and I think it was done pretty well. But yeah, I think that's one of the unanswered questions that's not really
It doesn't
that
need to be
deep.
answered.
I don't think it's that deep.
It's there for it's there to tell us about the backstory. There's no like extra little thing I think that is like inherently something we're missing.
Yeah. And so God, I feel do you feel bad for Logan Martin? Do you feel bad for Holloway when he, because he's kind of a dick, but I do think that in their few short scenes together, him and Elizabeth, the Noomi Rapace, they have good chemistry. I buy them as a couple enough.
Yeah.
Where I believed in, like, and especially when he dies, I actually felt like her pain, like for losing him. Like, yeah. He's not entirely likable. So
He's not, and I don't know why they made him that way, because
yeah,
I thought that he was like, he's a scientist, and they find like, was his whole downfall the fact that he wanted to talk to one of them alive?
life, yeah.
Is that why he's so pissed? I think.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And that's why when they're like, when they have like the helmet thing in the head, they're like trying to like basically revive it, and that's why he's just so upset that like what ends up happening happens, and starts whatever. Like he's upset because he really wanted to communicate with one of them, but he is pretty happy when they realize like the sample DNA is like what she discovers
the
is
same.
pretty
So that's an answer in and of itself for him.
No,
which is good.
yeah, right.
But like, but then that's when he starts getting sick, and so
of course.
like, so
Too late.
I felt bad for him only in the sense that, like, I mean, he kind of chose like death by cop.
Yeah, I mean, he basically was like, he tells her to do it.
Yeah,
just, like,
and
do
so
it.
like I felt bad for him in the way that getting burned alive would probably be a horrible way to die.
Yeah.
So that's probably the reason. But like, yeah, he was a dick to all the crewmates. He was kind of a dick to Naomi just because like he distanced himself from her. Like they've been awake for what, 24 hours and he won't talk to her?
Yeah.
It's like they just made the most significant discovery in the history of the world. And he's like pouting. So like I don't really feel that bad for him, but I think that his like ailment goes from bad to worse.
It's that progression of them showing it, and it's so quick, but like gradual. Like it starts like in the cave and like all that stuff, and you see the stuff in his eyes are like, it looks like he's like popped like blood vessels in his eyes. Like starts with that, and then like as they're just trying to get back to the ship, like him slowly actually rapidly like deteriorating. Was really well done, and like kind of made my skin crawl a little bit because it's like, and you actually feel his pain too. Like you could tell that like this is excruciating for him as well.
It's funny, you could probably make this movie with just that nowadays, and people would be freaked out about it because of COVID. Like, it would probably be like it's one of those things where they go there and they find a disease. Like, like that could probably be the scariest thing. Like that's immediately what Shaw's worried about. It's like, hey, we need to quarantine everyone. We need to make sure no one else is sick. Yeah. And that felt very realistic to me, which I actually really did enjoy.
What else was realistic? I felt like, and they're saying when they radioed back and said that he's sick, and Charlize Theron, who's so cold this entire movie, it's just like she gets up, she's like, sick with what? Like from that moment right there that she's not letting him back on the ship. And shitty moment, I feel bad, but like when she was like, no,
I feel that,
said, all of you except for him can come back on here, and I was like, that is
very realistic.
What most people would do. I did feel bad for Shaw and all that, but I was like, most people would be like, we're not letting this infected motherfucker back on the ship. Who knows what he has, and like if it can spread or like whatever it is. I think that is the most realistic response to that.
Yeah.
That's probably one of my favorite moments with her, because she's so insane. Like you could tell her face when she's like, oh, he's sick, and she's like, sick with what? She like backs up. She's like, yeah. She knows right away. Like, no,
you're like, nope, not coming on my ship.
You're not coming back on here.
Yeah, and like that kind of leads into, because they go back. So I'm trying to think, like this is when they are coming back and they've already discovered those two geologist and the biologist who
and
are dead.
they went to there, and then that's when he gets sick, and then they're coming back from that little exploration.
So
by the way,
probably,
there's also that girl that like when they find one of the guys, and she's like, "Oh, there's something moving in his esophagus." Like, why are you looking? Like,
gosh,
what?
She's a doctor. Like, she needs to know that.
What?
Yeah,
like no, like I think it's about to like spring up. And like
was gonna get killed immediately.
I know, right there. I know, right there. Yeah.
But like, I want to ask you what you thought about like sort of the Fifield monster character that they had, because that was probably
Roy Rage.
Yeah. And also, I mean, no, I just brought this up, but like they have all these main characters. The only people he kills are like technicians in the like garage or something, that like
people that we never even really met.
That they never mentioned. And it's like, all right, this guy's just gonna go like full.
I had to wonder, like, did we beat them earlier? I was like, I don't remember. Yeah, like,
random guys that start shooting him with like plasma rifles or something.
There's
like,
no one of real consequence that dies in that scene. I'm supposed to care about.
But like, did you like that at all? Because that was the one part of like sort of like the action, and I didn't really think that he looked that terrifying, that great. I didn't really like the makeup that they put on him. I didn't really like that part. I thought that it was a little bit of a
cheap. I thought the brutality of it was pretty like intense. Like when he started smashing like the helmet, like his face. I'm like, no, but I was like, the brutality of it. I was like, all right, that it's effective there. It wasn't probably necessary, but I mean, I think for people who were bored by the movie, that probably was a nice moment for them to be like, oh, finally something's going on.
Finally, yeah.
Yeah, it felt a little like one of those things that's like,
we need something else.
Like and they like, hey, we're missing a little bit of action here, so let's like tack this on. I don't think he looked all that terrifying either, but like I said, like some of the gore in that scene was pretty well done. But you're right, I would have cared more if he was killing people that
I was just like
who are these game players?
Yeah, but like I don't know, because the black liquid turned Holloway sick, but it made Fifield into this sort of like.
Well, do you think it would have made got sick? I mean, it kind of looked like maybe he would have looked like
he was
that.
Starting to turn into.
So like would he had probably ordered out too, maybe got like angry and like violent, and so it's possible that like we just saw like the early part of it with Holloway and. Burnt up.
That's true.
Burnt up before we can see it all. Before we could see what happens, by our boss lady Charlize Theron. It's like, you can't get back on my ship.
Yeah,
homie.
Yeah, I don't know.
By the way, this is not really that important, and I know because there's much deeper themes in this movie, right?
Yeah.
But
I think I know what you're gonna bring up.
But I'm glad they addressed that she just needs to get laid. Like,
yes.
I
knew you were gonna bring that up.
Because like you're watching it, you're like, why is she so like fucking high strung and uptight? Like. You probably should get laid, and I love that they have that scene between them because I feel like it's like speaking for the audience. Like, dude, like, yeah. Then when he asks her if she's a robot.
Well, I also love it's. No, it sounds like a little bit crass, but like I do kind of like how. I mean, there's all these males on the ship, and they're all kind of talking about like making sort of crude jokes about Charlize Theron, and like then Idris Elba just kind of like shoots his shot.
Yeah.
Just like. But I thought it was a very well. It was really well done in the script because it didn't seem forced. It wasn't like it's not like they showed like some crazy sex scene that was unneeded.
No, of course not. Yeah,
it was just kind of it was just kind of
all
like
implied.
It was like, hey, if you want to get laid, like there's easier ways to do it than to come to my bridge. And, yeah, like look at that.
And then when he asked her if she was a robot, she's like,
no, I'm not. All right. My room, 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
And then he starts singing, playing his accordion. Oh, that's great.
Love the one you with. Yeah. That was.
It was a nice little lighthearted moment.
Yeah, I was like, how do I address this moment
showed her
in a movie
in
a movie that has like deeper themes and like. I mean, I'm glad that they actually just pointed out that she needed to get laid. Like it was like a good joke to like throw in because there's no levity in this movie really.
Well, it also kind of like alleviates like it shows why like when those two guys are getting attacked, why no one's there. So it actually kind of helps like that.
Yeah, that was another. That's actually a funny part about it. Like, oh, like they're like, hey, are you guys seeing this? Like, no, they're boning.
Yeah,
that's why they can't see it.
Yeah,
you know what? This was an interesting thing. Idris Elba, I kind of felt like he could have used his real accent in this movie. I know that's like a weird thing to bring up.
Was he supposed to be Southern?
Yeah, I think he and he has a good convincing American accent. Like I've always because I didn't know he was British for a really long time. Like when he first. Started acting, but this felt like one where he could have used it. Like he could have.
There's no. I mean, it could have been. It was a like international trip. Could have been from
That's
anywhere.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's actually another character I think that I don't know if I want it like fleshed out more. Because Idris Elba is just good. I mean, he's just a good actor, but I
Hmm.
feel like there could have been more done with that character, like a little bit. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, it's hard when like the ensemble is like this big, and
Yeah.
some people are going to get shortchanged a bit. And he does have a lot of screen time, but you don't
Yeah.
really learn a lot about him, really. I
I
mean,
think you learn a good. I think you learn enough, especially in the very end scene when um, like Shaw's kind of asking like, "Hey, like, don't you care about like
uh,
what they're?" His answer is just like, "Listen, I don't care why they made us. I don't care why they don't want us around. I don't care why they maybe want to kill us." He's like, "I'm going home." And I think that that's actually a very good interpretation for
yeah,
probably a lot of like people when it comes to like religion and like what that question is about. It's like, oh, why are we here on Earth? And most people are like, I don't care. I'm
I don't
here.
care.
I have
I'm
to
here.
figure it. I
Yeah,
have to figure it out. And
yeah,
like, no matter what the answer is it going to change anything? Like, probably not.
right.
And so like, you can kind of see like that mindset kind of go through with what he's going through, but then it also is like at the very end, he's like, I have a chance to save humanity,
He
and
does
like,
it.
yeah, and he does it without question, pretty much. And then his
That
two co-pilots are like, "Yeah, I'm in with it." I was
yeah,
like,
I'm
"Dude,
down too. I'm like,
I'm
no,
down too."
I'm about to get in this escape pod. You can do it yourself.
Yeah,
Again, another real moment from Charlize Theron where she's like, "Man, like, no, look, I'm getting off the ship. Like, I'm not gonna." But you know what? That moment of like self-sacrifice though actually hit pretty differently when I watched it yesterday. I thought that was a really good. I thought that moment was
yeah,
really well done. Actually, how they did that. Like, not because usually sometimes moments like that can be kind of cheesy and
yeah,
but I thought it was handled pretty well. Like, I was like, oh, you kind of feel for at least him. I mean, I didn't really get to know the other two that well,
yeah,
but yeah, it was like a cool, I guess, a cool kind of full circle moment for that character, and and he gets to save humanity. So I thought that was pretty decent
yeah.
moment in the movie. Yeah,
I thought it was well done in the end, and like, I mean, he did save what they needed to do, and it's like, yeah,
thank
no, I thought that like I thought it was well done, and like it actually worked. Like sometimes they have this in the movie where they'll sacrifice themselves and it just ends up not really saving anything, and there's still
right.
like some things to do. So I actually think that this did a really good job of it's finite, the ship's not there. The guy actually ends up still being alive, but he still has to go and find something else. So it actually worked, which I think
Yeah.
is important.
And she leads the movie. Elizabeth Shaw's a character. Like, what did you think of? Like, you kind of invested in her and like her arc that you really. I mean, I actually feel a lot of sympathy for her. Like, especially when this exposition was supposed to be one thing for her, and then of
Mhm.
course, like in a lot of movies like this, they learn when they discover something else that like this isn't exactly what they thought they were gonna find. I really thought that she played like all those beats like really well. Like when you first introduced her and she seems so earnest and like, wanting to discover all this stuff and wanting to learn all these things. And then, this gradual progression of like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. I think she plays that pretty well. And like, she's a
Yeah.
pretty effective lead character to kind of, because you have to latch on to at least one person in here. And even though there are a lot of people in this movie, like
Yeah.
I think she is the one you have to like stick with.
Hmm.
David being another one interesting one. I just an interesting character in general. I mean, I'm glad you said he's like one of the best characters, if not the best character in the movie, too. But like, it really comes down to her, like having to like really invest in like her character arc and her progression. I thought she did a really good
Well,
job in the movie.
first of all, her acting is insane. It's so
Yeah,
good. The scene of the emergency C-section is just like it is brutal. It is perfect.
she sells that. She
It's
sells
not
that
too
so well, dude.
long. It's not too long. You still get some of like the like, dude, when she has to crawl out from under the pod and that thing's just
Yeah,
like hanging there.
yeah.
Oh, and like just the like the brutality of her getting like her cutting herself open, and I love her face when she
And
injects
having to staple
and
herself
it's
back
the
up.
staple herself back. But I also love like how I don't know. I mean, I've never taken a shot of I'm guessing what's like very effective morphine, but like
Fiend.
she'll save all those things and you just see her face go up for like it's like the
Yeah,
E of it. Really, really well done. And I think that her character is it's lovable. It's I mean,
yeah,
she even says like when you see David watching her dreams, which first of all kind of creepy in the very beginning,
yeah.
but like how she kind of takes and she's had this mindset for a long time where it's like, hey, I believe in this because it's what I choose to believe in. She kind of continues that throughout her life, which as you can see her drive, and that's what her purpose is. And I think that even without like as you see Holloway's frustration, you see her continuing to be curious and continuing to see like what can we take from this? What can we still learn?
What can we learn?
What's our next step? And so it's a great way to progress the story, and it's a great way to have us continue to like the character because she doesn't get down after many setbacks, including cutting herself open and having an alien baby. So
that scene. So I remember when I first saw it in theaters, because we already knew at this point that he put something in his drink, and then of course they slept together. I just remember in my mind I was like, this is at the end of the day an alien movie. And they're not just gonna make you know that they sleep together just to have a random scene of them sleeping together. That is gonna pay off eventually.
Yeah.
And it pays off in a pretty gruesome way. It's really well done. I think she sells it really well. It's really also another scene of like whatever can go wrong will go wrong, because she cuts it out of herself and she's in there. Then like breaks open. Now she's and now she's in there with it. Yeah. And now she has to get out and quickly staple herself back up.
Yeah.
And try to get out. And like that whole scene is just, I still watching it yesterday, I was like so uneasy while watching
it's uncomfortable, but it's so good. It's really, really well done.
Yeah. And like, the right amount of like, it's not too gory. I mean, it was just enough. Like where like, it's like, all right, that's all I need to.
And it was still enough practical effects. Like it wasn't, obviously they cut her actually open. That was CGI, but like the actual alien itself was there, and you could see her acting with it, which I think was needed because it brings back the real like premise from the alien and all those effects that they used.
Yeah.
But like, what did you think of the actual alien itself? Because that was one of the things that I don't know if I liked.
Like when it was pulled out of her, or
because I mean it's very squid-like. It's very squid-like, which is very typical sci-fi. So what did you think about that on the look at that?
I kind of felt it could have been a little better. I mean, it's not like a total detriment to the movie. I mean, it's also creepy looking enough where I could maybe feel like weird, but I mean, of all like the kind of, I thought alien movies are held to such a high standard because that design of like the xenomorph from like the original movies is like an iconic piece of like, I mean, it's still highly regarded as one of like the best like kind of like alien like designs. Film designs. Yeah, so it's hard to top that. I mean, it's hard to top like what, and even like looking back at like the first movie, like the most graphic scenes and stuff. Yeah, the face hugger thing, and then you have the chest bursting scene in the first movie too. Like what that looks like, that actually looks more terrifying to me than what we see come out of her in that scene.
Yeah,
but it wasn't like a total detriment. But it could have looked a little better. And then by the time it's like fully grown by the end of the movie, it's just completely, I mean, it's also something really gross and off-putting about like moves around like this, like the whole like
tentacles,
that whole thing. Yeah, like we feel a little uneasy.
It is. It's a little bit off-putting, but I think the design could have been a little better, especially being a quote-unquote alien movie. But it did set my hair definitely stood up a little bit on the back of my neck. It was just like, uncomfortable.
By the way, that scene in theaters, I do remember this vividly. Even if people were bored, that whole scene had everybody just like, duh! It just got progressively like worse. And like, it does play on that fear, but like, again, like, we don't want something in us that shouldn't be in us. Like inside of it. Yeah. She's like basically yelling like, get it out of me, get it out of me. And it's also reminiscent of the chest bursting scene from like the original Alien, and then watching her stomach like move like what's inside of her.
I also like, I don't know if this is just Ridley Scott being a dick, but I love how she says, "Oh, I need a cesarean." It's like, this pod was made for males only. I was like, is that just like that's so fucked up? Like, and so she has to do like a abdominal surgery.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Jesus, yeah, like that whole sequence is so well done, and probably the closest thing we have. I mean, the stuff with the two guys when they initially get attacked by like the alien thing too, like it's the closest thing that we have to like what people probably were expecting from the movie when they first went to go see it. I think they were expecting a lot more of that and less talk.
Yeah, but the talk is good, and like I think so. I actually watched a video on like it was just a quick one about when Wayland meets the engineer at the end. So like when I mean, you obviously, like, to everyone out there, you find out that Wayland's alive and he came on this trip to meet the engineers. He wants to meet his maker, which he does and dies because, but I saw something where they actually transcribed. I like to watch with subtitles, but you didn't see what engineer actually said.
Right.
But I don't know if this was just some guy, he kind of like translated it or something, but they basically say, like, David's talking to him saying, hey, like, we're here because you asked us to be here. Like, you sent a message to us to come and visit. And the guy was just like, I didn't tell anybody to come. We don't want you here. You shouldn't be here, and you need to leave. And like basically, and then like they keep asking, and he's like, no, I'm gonna get out of here because it's basically a tomb. Like he wants to leave too because it's a death trap.
Yeah. I was a lot of people I was looking online too. They wanted, like, they were talking about what does David say to the engineer that makes him fucking rip his head off, basically.
Yeah, which is a great tribute to the first movie as well.
Yeah, it is. Michael Fassbender said people look into this like a lot deeper than they probably should, because he said that he knows what the line was because he had to like have it translated for him. But he said that he's like, that's not the point of the scene. He said the point of the scene is to show how angry the engineer is that he's being woken up out of cryostasis by these insignificant beings, and all he wants is for this android to stop talking. So he tears his head off like you would the wings of an insect, an insignificant fly. So it's not anything really deeper. More, he was like, I know a lot of people want to look into it more than that, but like
insignificant
for someone like the engineer who's like or like beneath me, like, why are you trying to communicate with me? I fully on board with that explanation. Yeah, I'm fully on board with that explanation for like why that happens and why he gets so angry.
Me too. So, like, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it does. I mean, and fucking you, because you love David, even though David's very complicated. I remember when that happened in the movie. I was like, oh wait, no more David. But we get a lot of.
Well, okay, I will say one of the creepiest scenes is when Shaw like is taking his body and he zips up his head in that little bag, and she's like, I'm sorry. He's like, it's totally fine. And you just see Michael Fassbender's head getting zipped up in a bag. That is a very disturbing scene. Just that image that stuck with me. I was like, God, I don't really want to watch that again.
Yeah, and some people I was looking online too have asked because of what he does to Holloway, and then knowing what it does to her, getting pregnant with like an alien baby. A lot of people don't understand why he decides to help her in the end, but I was like, well, I think he doesn't want to be destroyed there.
Curious too.
And he doesn't want to die there. Like we can help each other.
It's either continue. Like, he's not going to die, so his head will just be there for forever, millennia, whatever it is. I think he still wants to see how far he can take things. Like he's learning and continuously becoming I think he wants to be a creator. That's what he wants to do. And he got a taste of it, and he's like, Holloway's my best, or Shaw's my best chance to continue this and find this race and like this material that can do a lot of different things.
Yeah. Another interesting question. We'll see if you what you think. They asked, why did the engineer suddenly decide to destroy the Earth? Like it says, when the engineer is awoken from his cryostasis, he embarks on an intense mission to board the nearest ship and take off. His destination, our planet, which has been targeted for destruction. Hence, Shaw convincing Elba to ram the exiting spaceship to stop him from ever reaching our planet. They don't think it's like a sudden thing. They said suddenly might be the wrong word. It's basically implied that the engineers have been angry with us for some time, they being the parents who once created us. And they said, Ridley Scott has said there were sequences in the film that were going to explain why we'd angered the gods known as the engineers. And in one instance, it was going to be that Jesus was an emissary of the engineers sent to see how we were doing.
Okay, that's too far.
And what did we do? We crucified them. So the engineers have been with us for some time, but something happened while they were creating the aliens to force the engineers into hibernation. This also falls under the category of things probably better explained in a potential sequel. This was before Alien Covenant came out.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I always thought it because like when Michael or when David first finds like that Earth was there, like that was their destination before they went to the cryo. I always took it as kind of like, hey, it might have even gone back to that first scene where it's like, hey, this was an accident that wasn't supposed to happen, and a creation of what we see is like insignificant beings that think too much and they're in their head about why they're there. They're constantly destroying things, and they might have been watching us from afar.
Yeah.
They're just like, hey, listen, like we need to start over and do something else because we messed up this first creation, like kind of thing, which as you can see, David eventually does. He finds multiple things that like in Covenant, he's like, hey, this isn't my first creation, but this final one is like what I'm aspiring to. So maybe the engineers were thinking, hey, they didn't get us right the first time, so it's time to have a fresh start. Maybe that's why they were developing this weapon to wipe out an entire planet. And because they're like, hey, we need to get rid of this first because it could turn ugly.
Yeah. You know what? I also hate how Charlize Theron dies in this. I know, I mean, I need the character to live. Character wasn't nice. She wasn't great. But a nice little, like, roll over the other direction.
Yeah,
instead of
just getting absolutely crushed by a giant ship.
I mean, fucking Shaw does it at one point. It's about to fall on her and she rolls over.
Dude, it's the typical thing. It's like if something's falling straight down, run to the side.
Right.
Run to the side. That makes no sense why you would run directly into the path of where it's going.
Yeah, she's been set up as a pretty smart person. I mean, she's not nice, but she's not dumb. So I was like, why did she just like lay there? And, like,
but also, I mean, you can see the fear. I mean, I love the camera shot though, of just like you see it coming towards her.
I'm glad we don't actually need to see. Don't need to see crush her either. That's her face and like her being scared, like, is enough to imply like,
and she's just like just those last moments like, oh god, oh god, oh god. Like, that's probably how it would happen. It was terrifying.
I mean, how would you prefer to die? Would you rather stay on the ship where they just crash into it and then you blow up, or do you want to get crushed by their ship?
Whatever's quickest.
She was gonna go either way.
Yeah. I don't know. Getting crushed sounds pretty immediate.
Dude, when she's like trying to rush to get that suit on so she can get in that escape pod, like that. By the way, that's the most emotion. The most emotion we see from her the entire movie. By the way,
the timing of that, it's like 30 seconds till pod ejects, and I'm like, she's gonna get dressed in that suit in 30 seconds. Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Well, how do you feel about how everything? Because I don't think at the time we knew we were gonna get another one. Like, not really sure if they planned on like, oh, we're gonna make a sequel to this. And how did you feel initial watch? Like how it ended? Like, did you feel like it was open ended and like it didn't really answer all your questions, or do you feel like it ended the way it should have?
I thought it ended in a good way. Definitely when I first saw it, I was kind of like, wow, this is setting something else up for sure. Yeah. But I do like the way that it ends. I think having like all of Shaw's hope kind of be dashed, but also having there still be questions for her to answer, because she's still looking for the reason why they didn't like us. And to go to their home planet is the best way to do that. And so she's like, hey, there's nothing left for me on Earth. Why would I go back there when I have this opportunity to continue to explore? I really like that sense, and that there's multiple ships, like they can go and explore and continue their journey. I really did like that. Yeah. I wish the engineer had just died with Idris Elba's sacrifice. I don't think we needed.
Oh, instead of coming back.
I know it sets up the xenomorph being created.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I thought it was a pretty weak attempt. Like first, like this giant like alien being, and he can't kill Shaw, who's had a C-section and is like,
she's still
crashed and like
the wound is probably infected. Like, I don't know, like
seriously exhaustion, like serious exhaustion. Like, come on. But I don't really like that, and also brings back the character design of the alien, which is basically just a giant squid that just eats him. I mean, it was pretty terrifying. Like having ropes wrapped around your head being pulled into a mouth is.
Dude, I didn't really realize
it's a typical sci-fi death that just it's like a Sarlacc, and
it's like squeezing him and trying to get him, and then at one point she's still trying to get away, and with one other tentacle it's like trying to grab her and pull her back too. It's like I'll take both of you. Like basically, like but I kind of wish it would have died when they crashed into the ship too, because it's not even like a long scene when he gets back on board with her.
It's like 2 minutes or something.
She quickly sets up for him to get snatched up by the alien that's inside there, and that's pretty much it. But I mean, we had to have this scene at the end where
the xenomorph comes out, which it's perfect. It's really well done.
Yeah,
I really like
it. It's really well done, and I think by the end of it, you're like, oh, there's the alien connection.
There's the alien that we were promised from all the previews.
And then there's all this bullshit, like, well, it doesn't look like it was. I'm like, well, it evolves, like, eventually. Like, I got that impression. Like, everyone's like, well, it doesn't look like it does in the like original movie. Like,
also CGI's gotten better. So
I mean, like, it's ridiculous. I mean, come on. I thought that was like a nice little button at the end of that movie.
Yeah,
I had kind of have that in there, and. If you're a fan of like the alien movies, it was like, all right, this is kind of like the same connective tissue, and they fully like doubled down on that when they did Alien Covenant. Like, these are all connected. not just like the same DNA or like within the same universe, but this is within the same like storyline.
Yeah.
I thought was interesting. But yeah, I mean, like we talked about, like some of there's a lot of different themes that are like that run throughout the movie. Ridley Scott has always kind of played around with like the idea of artificial intelligence and all that, and they were saying that it's pretty evident in Prometheus, especially through the character of David. Also, there's a a little bit of religion in there as well, because Shaw is like the only religious believer on the crew. And like it's interesting too, because like a lot of the questions aren't like entirely deep, like like kind of like who am I, like where do I come from, but like they're all things that like I could see why someone would be want to explore it though, because some people don't, like you said, there's people like Idris Elba who like his character is like, I don't care how I got here or why I'm here, and then there's other people who are like, this has to mean more than we were put here for a reason. Why did they create us? And then
I also thought it was interesting too, like when David asks, like, after all that, you just met your maker, but you still believe in like or Christian or Catholic beliefs. It's like, oh well, who made them? So like, there's always going to be sort of like that extra sort of thing. So I thought that was a kind of an interesting point where it's like, yes, maybe we were created by these engineers, but she still has faith based on her upbringing.
I agree. Before we get to like any of the kind of its history as far as like when it came out, how it was received, is there anything like you kind of want to like end on as far as your overall thoughts of the film? Like, I mean, you love it, and I'm assuming it still holds up. God, I can't believe it came out in 2012.
I know. I think it holds up really well. Yeah. Final thoughts. I think it's a great adaptation of like sort of like this space travel type of movie. I love the C-section scene is just like a perfect, disturbing thriller horror sort of scene. Yeah. I think that's great. I love the reason why they're there. I love how things continue to change. Visual and just the cinematography is stunning. Just really well done. And all the actors have great chemistry together. Michael Fassbender just absolutely kills it. So definitely recommend to anyone who hasn't seen it, or if you have seen it and you didn't really like it the first time, definitely give it another watch. I think it's like holds up to this day. It's crazy. It came out 11 years ago. That's insane. But yeah, just continue to revisit it. I think it's definitely worth it.
By the way, that Michael Fassbender character was so popular. Even if you didn't really happen to not like Prometheus, the character was so popular that it was almost like a demand to bring the character back for Alien Covenant. It was like the big gets to come back, and that's how riveting people thought that character was. It was just really interesting. Like, he plays it really well too. Like, I just like the different tones of his voice, and like you believe that he's an android, that he's not a human. But I also love like the look on his face when he's like he's taking in all this like knowledge that he wants to learn. And also, there's like a big fear. Like, I mean, a lot of movies deal with this. Like, it's Terminator 2 does this, where it's like everyone's always worried about like these things that aren't human, or if it's a computer, or if it's a robot, whatever it is, becoming so self-aware that it becomes like smarter than the rest of us.
Yeah.
And that is what that character represents for me. It's just like, it's definitely. And that could be why Holloway kind of is a little hostile towards him. Like, he kind of fears that too. Like this thing is like gonna become, it can do all the things that I've basically took forever to learn, and he's done it like this, do it better than me. And that's why I think that character is so interesting. And I definitely know people that don't like the movie, like we said, because it's slow
burn a little bit.
And honestly, it's 2 hours and 4 minutes. I never felt it being that long. Like, there's been movies where I'm like, oh, this is really long. I was just interested in everything that it was selling me, that I didn't care that it was over 2 hours.
Yeah.
And all the conversations, all the writing, everything about everyone was interacting, and like the themes of the film were like much more interesting to me than like having this. Now, cool, like granted, we get the C-section scene. That's fun. It's a fun, like, typical alien like horror movie scene. We get a few moments of that, and I'm glad that they're there, because it does kind of like adds a little bit more excitement to it. But this movie is best when it's doing a lot of talking, because I think conversations are so interesting, and like
honestly, just the human interaction with the human and the android, and just like why that is interesting, and why the android want there's another line that David has when it's like he's talking about like, hey, if once you meet your maker, like, what are you gonna say? Like, do you really want to meet them? And it's like, it's kind of going back to like, why did you create me? And it's like this very great dichotomy of Like they're trying to do the exact same thing that David's experiencing consistently. It's like he's interacting and living with his makers, and we're trying to go and see that. And it's like, what if we hate them or they hate us? It's like, well, David probably hates us too. So it's like there's all of that sort of inner dialogue that is insanely interesting. That's consistently going on.
Yeah, I agree. And the movie holds up. Like, it's 11 years old. I guess a lot has changed even in that time with visuals and visual effects, but like this movie looks like
it looks
made
great.
Yesterday. It looks like it was made yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, like you could take away, it's just a visually stunning movie, and I think that's why it's just so. It's not just like the big, massive like shots that you get from the opening. Like every aspect of the movie looks nice, even if it's just characters like interacting on the ship. Like just the way the movie is, like the cinematography is just beautiful. Everyone
is shot in 4K.
Yeah, everyone is lit really great. Everyone looks great. I mean, it's just really a nice looking movie. I know that it was shot with like 3D cameras because that was like they were doing that. That was pretty big when this movie came out. But yeah, it's if anything, I mean, I think it looks better than Alien Covenant from what I remember.
As far as like good. Like, I actually really like that movie.
I haven't watched it in a while, and I'm trying to remember what it looked like visually compared to this one. I think Prometheus maybe looks better overall. So
Covenant definitely has a lot more scenes that are very dark, which I mean, historically, I'm not really a huge fan of because it's hard to see.
Yeah.
So I do like this one.
I like my scenes in the light.
Man, I'm like, damn, turn some lights on.
Lights on, yeah. The big Ridley Scott did this really cerebral, thought-provoking sci-fi movie, and even though it opened really well, like $50 million opening weekend, it didn't hold on very well when it opened on June 1st. It fell pretty quick in North America. It still made $403 million worldwide on a $130 million budget. But I think they were expecting it to make more money in the States. It did. But he gave us that really cerebral, thought-provoking movie, and some people were like, oh, it's too slow, it's too cerebral. So he went the opposite direction with Alien Covenant, which is less cerebral and more like, hey, here's your xenomorph action, this is what you wanted. And that movie made less money. Yeah. So like it's probably like, fuck did you guys want? What? Like I should probably rewatch Alien Covenant because I haven't watched it in a while. I prefer this, just thinking about like where my last rewatch of that movie was and watching this yesterday.
We'll say Danny McBride is a hidden gem in that movie.
Yes, I do remember that. And the female lead's actually really good in it too. I do remember that being great. The case. I just think there's more. I mean, Michael Fassbender's great in it too, but I don't know. I think I just prefer the more cerebral.
I like Prometheus better. Yeah,
it's like, and actually, it was like one of my favorite movies from that year when it came out. I was amongst the people I was hanging out with at the time. I was in a vast minority on that. Yeah. Most people I know were like, movie sucks. And it came out during the summer. It was promoted as this like big summer like event.
It seems like it's a winter movie, I think.
I think so too. I didn't like marketing can kill a movie. Like if you're gonna make it look a certain way, like like it look like it's more like maybe action packed than it actually is. I know that was a big problem when Drive first came out with Ryan Gosling, because those trailers make it look like it's kind of wall to wall action. It's not really. Yeah. So it can kill a movie, and I think that kind of happened with Prometheus, where I mean, it's in the marketing that it's loosely tied to Alien. You think that's what you're gonna get. You're getting like an Alien movie, and not this more. Now there is room for cerebral sci-fi. Arrival made a lot of money, and that's not like an action-packed sci-fi movie. But Arrival didn't have the association with Alien attached to it, so like there's that.
Yeah, I think so too.
But yeah, I mean, Jackson loves Alien Covenant. I don't know if he likes it more than Prometheus. I forgot to ask him, but I will say I think time has been kind to this movie, though. I think more people now look at it and a little bit more. Now that there's less hype surrounding it, and like you can look back on it years later, I think people.
It did have very high expectations. That's the thing. It broke this alien drought, and I think that's what it was. It's like the first one coming back,
and you got Ridley Scott back.
Yeah, Ridley Scott. Like there's a lot of expectation for it. So like, I'm not surprised there was a bunch of haters right off the bat, but I'm glad it's gotten the respect it deserves once people have found it again.
Yep. And as far as critics, it is 73% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with 312 reviews counted. It says Ridley Scott's ambitious quasi prequel to Alien may not answer all of its big questions, but it's redeemed by its haunting visual grandeur and compelling performances, particularly Michael Fassbender as David. Got a B cinema score on the day that it opened. Isn't horrible for how much people didn't really like the movie. People didn't like it. Reviews mostly frequently praised both the film's visual aesthetic and design and Fassbender's performance as Android David, and that received almost universal acclaim. However, the plot drew a mixed response from critics who criticized plot elements that remained unresolved or were predictable, tempered by appreciation for the action and horror set pieces. God, of course. Variety didn't like it. I was trying to figure. I was like, The Sandlot. Variety didn't like that either. So I was like, I wonder if Variety.
Oh God, Variety doesn't.
Didn't enjoy it at all. Really, it said that they thought the storytelling was lazy. And The Guardian said that the movie is more grandiose, less interesting than Alien, and lacked the latter's central killer punch, implying that it was boring. Now, interesting, James Cameron directed the second movie, Aliens, which is, a lot of people consider that one of the best sequels ever made. It's definitely, Aliens is not horror driven like Alien. Aliens is more of an action movie rather than like a horror film. But they asked James Cameron how he felt about Prometheus, and he said, I enjoyed Prometheus. I thought it was great. I thought it was Ridley returning to science fiction with gusto, with great tactical performance, beautiful photography, great native 3D. There might have been a few things that I would have done differently, but that's not the point. You could say that about any movie. However, despite his praise, he also said he thought it didn't add up logically, according to him. Yeah. Not entirely sure what he means by that, but
because it didn't have any Avatar or
no blue
people. Yeah,
that's what it was. Yeah, I thought that's all he makes now. All right, let's see if I can find any interesting facts about Prometheus. There might be a few.
Some fun ones.
Play some fun ones. Let's see. Okay, it says Ridley Scott named the film Prometheus, seeing the name aptly fit the film's themes. It's the story of creation, the gods, and the man who stood against them. In Greek mythology, the Titan Prometheus was an immortal servant of the gods who stole and gave to mankind the gift of god fire, an immeasurable benefit that changed the human race forever, for better and worse. It made mankind dangerous to the gods. That's why he named it Prometheus.
But also, actually, part of that story, part of the mythology is the gods banished Prometheus and murdered him for it. So I think that it can kind of show that, like, even though the engineers were looking out for, or like the Prometheus is there to like kind of figure some stuff out and like things for the gods, like they're still going to punish us for it.
I'm glad you can see. I'm glad when people can throw in stuff like that because I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So thanks.
That's my mythology upbringing.
Oh yeah. Thanks for the assist, homie. Charlize Theron was originally cast as Elizabeth Shaw, but had to decline the role due to scheduling conflicts. Later, another change in schedule freed Theron to do the film, thus allowing her to take the role of Meredith Vickers, as Noomi Rapace had already taken the role of Shaw. I can't even see her playing that.
Me neither. She does so good as being like stone cold.
Oh, bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't see her playing at all.
I was going to say Captain.
Sir Ridley Scott decided against featuring the original xenomorph from the Alien films. As the sequel squeezed him dry, he did very well, and no way am I going back there. That's why he didn't want to include the original look. It said, this being an indirect prequel to Alien, he decided to feature his xenomorph ancestor parent. However, criticism from fans who complained about the absence of the famous creature after the film's release made Scott change his mind and include the creature in the sequel, Alien Covenant. That man and discourse can make
looking for the fans looking out for him, and then they hated it.
And then they were so mad. They're like, no, that's not what we wanted. Ridley Scott instructed Charlize Theron to stand in corners and move in lurking movements in order to accentuate Vickers' distant, enigmatic nature. See that? I can also see, I wonder if I don't think she's oh God, why am I blanking on this term? Actors that like get into their roles. A method actor, yeah. I can't imagine her being method. So if she was, that'd be an awful person to hang out with.
No, yeah.
for that entire shoot. Let's see. Charlize Theron found herself struggling during her action scenes due to her smoking habit, particularly the segments that required her to run through sand in boots weighing 30 pounds.
Oh, come on, Charlie.
Oh man. Ridley Scott. Okay, so Ridley Scott said that he was filming the most aggressive film he could by not caring about the MPAA ratings, having support for such a bold movement from 20th Century Fox CEO Rothman, who addressed Alien fans by saying that he was very aware of their concern and that they can take it that the film will not be compromised either way. So if that means that the film is R, then it'll be R. If it's PG-13, then it'll be PG-13, but it will not be compromised. Scott pre-visualized and shot the film with both adult-only R and more accessible PG-13 content, allowing the more adult imagery to be deleted if necessary without harming the overall presentation if certain cuts were demanded. Eventually, the film was rated R for sci-fi violence, including some intense images and brief language, and it was released without any demanded cuts.
Nice. I like that.
That's a good way to do that. Like, just to kind of yeah, that's interesting. He said, well, so Ridley Scott suggested that the cast could have slept and effectively lived on the Prometheus interior set during initial filming. This didn't happen due to health and safety precautions, so they could not live on and sleep on the actual Prometheus set. Yeah, a lot of it's just like, random stuff about like effects. He tried to like not use as much CGI as he could. He wanted to use, I mean, you could tell where he does use it, but he also wanted to use more practical stuff because, he knew that the original
that's part of the allure of Alien.
Yep. Oh, the makeup process to age Guy Pearce took 5 hours to apply and an hour to remove it.
Oh, poor Guy Ritchie.
He's not even in the movie long. Oh, man. All right. The film was originally envisioned to be a straight-up prequel to Alien via a script written by John Yates, who was in high demand due to his previous script being on the unofficial Hollywood blacklist of best unproduced screenplays. Actually been discussing other projects with Scott Free, Sir Ridley Scott's production company, when they asked him to write an Alien prequel. He immediately got to work on it, and then Damon Lindelof came in and touched up his script. And then it was decided between Scott and Lindelof that, yes, it will have the same DNA as the original film, but we don't want them to call it a direct prequel. It's in the same universe, but has its own identity and storyline. And then they were like, oh, well, it's like Alien Covenant. It's coming out, so we can
exactly.
Yeah. But that's why it works for me. I think it works because, like, it's nice to
has two tones.
Yeah, it connected to Alien, but it doesn't need to. You don't need to have seen them in order to watch.
You don't, and I think that's very important. Yeah,
enjoy it. So yeah, I guess it's time for some questions from some of our peeps. One for you, one for me, one for both of us. Okay, let me see if I can pull it up. I try to like copy and paste them in my notes on my phone and. All right, Garrett Coulier, I believe, Colloier, on Twitter, wants to ask both of us, would we ever take suggestions for a deep dive from any of our listeners? That's such a pretty interesting question. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to that. It'd be kind of fun.
I definitely think if we do, we're gonna have to watch the movie together for sure.
Yeah.
So like, I think that it open up. The thing is, it's like. I think it might start. I don't want to like. I feel like if you make a specific pick or I make a pick and like maybe it has some certain things that we don't like, it's very easy to say, "Hey, I didn't like this." But when it comes from one of our listeners,
someone listening,
have a movie. Like what if we say yes, we're gonna deep dive this, and then we do it, and then we're like, "Hey, we both really didn't like it, so we're not. We're gonna pick something else." Like I don't know. I don't think that that would happen because our listeners have impeccable movie taste. So, I mean, that's definitely a great idea.
Yeah, I think down the line it'd be really good to do. I mean, we're only on episode 9. I think it'd be something to do like further down, like just to throw it out on social media and like. So I wouldn't want anyone to feel bad because we like randomly picked like someone's movie first. Like it just be like try to. They have that like little randomizer thing, which is how I do the questions, where it's like I'm not picking it. I just like do that, and it like gives me one randomly. So that's cool. I do that in the beginning of the day. Cool. So that's a good way to do it without being like, I picked this person's movie over someone else's, so it doesn't feel like But I think that'd be a way to kind of make the show a little different and like open it up.
A bit. I'd be into it.
Owen, let me see if I can find yours. Courtney Howard on Twitter. Oh well, you already know the answer to this. I know that the Box Butter is coming up on 100 episodes. Will you be on it?
I will be. 100 episodes. I'm gonna be on
the 100th episode of Back to the Blockbuster. We are still trying to figure out what we're going to do. I think Jackson and I were just like, there'll be some fun stuff that we can kind of throw into it, but I think it will just almost be like a discussion about like the progression of like where it started and like where it is now and where it's going. And I think that's kind of the best. We'll probably try to think of some fun games or something to play. Like,
Yeah, don't
on
worry,
the
Courtney. I'll be
episode.
there. I'll be on it.
So yeah, he will be on it. Actually, I mean, he could be on anytime he wanted to be on. It's just a lot easier to navigate, the every other week schedule. But dude, always on top of it. He's always ready. Always has his movie ready. Always ready to go.
Ready to go.
So yeah, he will be on the 100th episode with myself and Jackson. And this one is for me from Podcast Movement. I know that you have. Okay, here we go. I know that you have the anniversaries and you also have the deep dive. Is it ever hard to pick which one you want to do an anniversary for, whether or not you are, if you want to deep dive that movie instead? So I actually ran into this problem. Not really a problem, but I almost deep dive Spring Breakers, but I saw that it was turning 10 and then did it on a main show.
That would have been fun.
It would have been a fun one. I think it kind of comes down to, because you guys both have good discussions when we talk about movies. Yeah. I guess it would depend on, like, I really want to discuss this one with Owen, or I really want to discuss this one with Jackson. There are a few movies that are coming up like that have anniversaries, but I also think it'd be good to deep dive them. It really depends, but that was one example. I thought about doing that one as a deep dive, and then I looked on the calendar. I was like, oh, well, it's turning 10 in March, so I might as well save it. Yeah, it just comes down to, like, who I want to. I mean, it's the dynamic is good with all of us as far as, like, talking about movies. Like, Jackson's really good on the anniversary episodes when we, like, just talking about one movie. I think he really likes doing that.
He does a great job.
Yeah, he really likes doing that, and, like, but the way that things down is differently than how you and I break them down for certain movies. So it really comes down to, like, I want to know what Owen thinks about this, or I want to know what Jackson thinks about this. So that's what it comes down to. But yeah, sometimes it's a little tricky because I could see Spring Breakers being fun with you, like, because I don't remember. I don't know when's the last time you watched it.
It's been years, dude. It's been years.
And that probably would have been a really fun one to.
It would have been great.
But yeah, it could be a little tricky, but yeah, I think certain movies spark, like, different kind of discussions with each one of us. So it's never a bad choice. I'm going to do the anniversary one with, like, Jackson instead of doing it here. It's just different. And there's one movie. It doesn't have an anniversary, but I've been thinking about this, and I'm not going to tell you what movie it is.
Okay.
It's fairly recent, and I thought about wanting to do it. It's not that it's great, but I think the discussion would be good. Because someone asked me, like, would you pick mediocre-ish movie knowing that it would spark a good debate?
That's a great idea.
Because, like, I think when we started this, it was like, oh, we were just going to pick, like, good movies, like movies that we really like.
True.
But there are movies that are kind of like, I didn't think that was all that great, but
it
explores some
great
interesting
dialogue
stuff
around it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that was, like, someone asked me that, and I was like, yeah, that's it. And there's one movie in particular that's in my back pocket. Like, it's great. Okay. It's definitely like an interesting one to kind of see what you thought of it. Okay. So I might use it one day.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, that's it. That's all the questions. Thank you again for another good pick. This was a really fun one to read. I hadn't watched this in like 4 or 5 years.
It's a great one to revisit.
I actually own it.
Yeah.
It's a four disc collector's edition.
We got a chance to talk about it. There's a lot of really cool topics and it's just one of those movies that I consistently will grab off the shelf if I had a physical copy.
For sure. How did you watch it? Did you just rent it?
I just rented it. Yeah.
Okay. Because I don't know if I didn't even look.
It's on Hulu, I believe. It is on Hulu. I think so.
All right. So, but if you are a big fan of it, you can get this 4 disc collector's edition. It's probably a small fortune now. I don't even know how much it is now. I think it was pretty expensive when I bought it. There's over 7 hours of extras, which I have never fully explored.
Yeah, so crazy.
If I ever have time and I'm bored, maybe I will. Maybe I should have explored it for this, but it
would have been some fun. You probably would have gotten some great fun facts out of it.
No, that's a lot of extras though.
It's a lot of time,
but definitely worth owning if you want a physical copy because it looks great on Blu-ray. So
yeah,
there's that. Well, thanks again, man. As always, you're gonna sign us on out.
Take us away. All right, sounds good. Well, hey guys, thanks again for tuning into Back to the Blockbuster Presents Deep Dives with Owen and Gaius. Really enjoyed this pick this week. It's funny, I've picked more thriller and horror movies than Gaius, so maybe he'll start to he'll give me something scary to watch soon. But always appreciate you guys tuning in. Find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Spotify's my go-to. Pods has consistently been a great platform that has supported us. We love supporting them. And yeah, just keep listening on there. We're actually currently, I think, still number 1 at the film reviews chart. So
yeah,
listen on there. It's been great, and we really appreciate their support. As always, shout out to Playlist. They have been a great partner of ours, letting us be creative and letting us do some fun stuff and create good content for them. And keep listening out there. Next week will be Gaius's pick. I don't know what it is. We will see what it is. Gaius doesn't even know what it is.
I don't know either.
Yeah, but this is what we love to do. Listen to movies, talk about movies, watch movies, and just sit here and talk about it and deep dive them. So keep listening, and we got a lot of great stuff coming your way. So stay tuned.
Yeah, definitely. Also, I would like to point out, in terms of scope and budget, I think this is the biggest movie we've covered so far. One? I think so. It's a $130 million budget. I think of all the movies we've done, they've all been kind of smaller.
Yeah. This is big block.
You finally picked a blockbuster.
I did.
Second horror film, first blockbuster.
It was 11 years old though. That's why.
Yeah, breaking all kinds of rules, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, great choice, and I will think hard about what I'm going to pick next. It's gonna be hard to top Prometheus, but I will do my best.
You always do. You always pick a good one.
All right. Until next time, guys. Peace.
Sounds good.